I'm Seth Boro, managing partner here at Thoma Bravo. Today on Behind the Deal, we'll unpack the details of our acquisition of Qlik with insights from CEO Mike Capone. Mike, great to see you here in Miami. Thanks so much for joining us today for our podcast.
Oh, great. It's great to be here, Seth. Thanks for having me. This is a hot ticket. I mean, it's easier to get on CNBC than get on this podcast.
Well, look, this is the inaugural podcast from the Miami studio. So, you know, we saved it for a very important discussion. You and I have worked together, I was thinking about that today, for longer than any other CEO who I've worked with now consecutively over, since 2018, which is awesome.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's been a great run, 7 years, and still continue to love my job every day.
Well, that's great because we love having you in the job. How did you become CEO of Qlik back in 2018? What, maybe just walk through that background and also your background.
Sure. Well, I've been in tech for almost 30 years, in and around cloud companies, all public though. I really didn't know a lot about private equity. And one day I literally got a call from some guy named Orlando Bravo. He said, hey, your name came up in a search that we're doing for this company, Qlik. You were recommended by another portfolio company CEO, and I'd love to sit down and talk to you about it. And my first reaction was, I have a job. I'm doing great. I was COO of a company. And but Orlando's Orlando. This is why he raises billions of dollars, right? He's super compelling. And he talked to me a bit, gave me the pitch. I then subsequently met you and Andrew and the rest of the team and Chip. And I fell in love with the opportunity and a chance to really do something transformative with great partners. And one thing led to another, and 7 years later, here we are.
Just remind us, you had a very extensive international career at ADP, and then of course you were with a healthcare analytics company. Just one of the things that I remember when we met was just your global view, also your operational breadth, because you had really come across a lot of different parts of the business at ADP over your career. But maybe walk through that a little bit, because I think the combination of that ended up being really unique for what was needed at Qlik at the time.
Yeah, that's true. It was a unique fit. So at ADP, as you know, my background is product. So as a product development, I was an engineer basically to start, and most of my jobs were in and around product. But I had one unique opportunity at ADP, which was to run their global HR payroll outsourcing business. So you can imagine this role where I was literally doing all the HR and payroll outsourcing for some of the world's largest companies, so IKEA and American Express and Citibank, and they operated in 50 countries. So I was literally traveling around the world, helping them get up and running on a global platform. And as part of that, I experienced lots of diversity, lots of different industries, as well as the opportunity to run kind of a global P&L. And fast forward, when the Qlik opportunity came around, Swedish company operating, we have customers in 100 countries, operations in 30. So it was a really great fit. My technology background along with my operational background internationally with TB's backing made a lot of sense.
Tell us a little bit about Qlik today, which of course is a different business than when you first started, and the customers it serves, and specifically what it does to create value for its customers.
Yeah, well, it's been a journey. So I like to count actually from the time that TB took Qlik private to fast forward, and I joined about a year or so into that journey. At the time when I joined, Qlik was a visual analytics company. I think you remember it was great at what it did, but it was a market that was quickly becoming competitive, right? You had Microsoft and Tableau and now Salesforce in the mix. And so one of the great things about the partnership was being able to sit down with TB and strategize, what do we need to do to stay ahead and relevant. And we immediately concluded we need to increase our TAM, right? We need to expand our market. And therein lies the power of TB and its ability to do deals, coupled with a really good operational team that we have at Qlik. So we set out to actually expand our purview from analytics only to a full end-to-end data analytics and AI platform. So harnessing the data all the way through analyzing it and then using modern capabilities like AI to get the most value out of that data. And 14 acquisitions later, we've built basically a whole new company.
And of course, the most meaningful of those acquisitions, both from a size and breadth of product, and probably creating a really unrivaled strategic platform in the market, was Talend, which was a company that was sitting in the Thoma Bravo portfolio, but not one that was part of Qlik. And of course, we decided to merge that in May of 23 under your and the team's leadership. But maybe walk us through why that integration, why that merger was so important, that acquisition was so important, what the challenges were, but also now the value that we're realizing and our customers are realizing in market.
Yeah, no, completely. So from the first day I got to Qlik in 2018, I felt like Talend would be a really good addition to the portfolio, but it wasn't the right timing. And again, the great thing about TB and the relationship is we stayed close. We talked about it. In the end, TB took the company private on their own, but we always kept in a dialogue about it. And then there just came an opportune moment where we said now might be the right time. There were some management changes and things to bring those two things together. So for me, it was perfect because it's something I always wanted to do, but I already had the benefit of TB being in there for over a year plus, actually operationalizing some of the TB playbook. So that made the onboarding for me at Qlik a lot easier. And what Talend brought to my portfolio was really, I think, best in class data transformation, data governance, data quality, to go with my data integration capabilities as well as the analytics capabilities in our AI tool set. And in today's world of AI, and I know we're going to talk about this, data quality, data governance is super important because you can see all the bad results that are coming out of AI that's fed with bad data, and that's what Talend helps me fix.
Mike, let's talk a little bit about AI. You just brought up the importance of governance and data quality and data infrastructure in the Gen AI world that we're in today, but actually Qlik has been talking about AI for a long time, and much longer than you might think, given just the prevalence in the market today, but with all the consumer-facing apps. But maybe give us a history of AI and how Qlik has thought about it over time, how that's evolved, and just sort of where you see it today in the market and how we're using it.
Sure. So I think we all know AI is not new. I was doing AI programming in college, a lifetime ago. What is new is the unlimited horizontal computing capacity we have now with cloud computing. And yes, the algorithms have gotten better and the capabilities have gotten better. And now with the advent of Gen AI, which is a more consumerized version of it, I think it's getting more acceptance in the marketplace. The reality is Qlik launched our first real AI products in the market like 5 years ago, right? We had something called Insight Advisor, which was on structured data. We had natural language processing. So this is new. And in fact, even some of the, quote, new innovations by some of my competitors, agentic, frameworks, we've had those as well. We acquired a company that we rebranded Qlik Application Automation, which is essentially agents. So we've been doing this for quite some time. So none of this is new. I think what the problem with AI is right now is everybody get all excited about it, but in and of itself, it's not transformative. You can't just skip to the end. And I think that's what a lot of companies would want you to believe, that just plug in an LLM and your business is going to totally turn around. And it's just not right. You can't skip to the end. You have to do the work. And Qlik helps our customers do the work. So that capability to harness all of the data, to govern it, to transform it, to make sure you have the right quality of it before you start feeding it into AI, that's what we do. And that's where our customers are seeing the real value. Most of our large enterprise deals are with customers who are doing it right by building this foundation. Because at the end of the day, the last mile stuff is gonna change. It's gonna evolve LLMs and tools, and you can already see that happening. LLMs are gonna be a dime a dozen, trust me. What's not gonna go out of fashion is getting your data in shape for AI, and we like to think that we're the best partner out there for that.
Yeah, tell us about Qlik Talend Cloud, because that was a big release from the combined company following the merger that you talked about at your big customer event that's now in market. But it's really, the innovation there is incredible, and I think it'd be great for listeners just to understand what you did with that product and what it does and how you brought that together so quickly, actually, after the two companies came together.
Yeah. Well, one of the things is, having a dream about acquiring a company, what you do with it. So we knew right away what we would do if we were able to bring the two companies together. And so Qlik and Talent, Qlik, we did an acquisition called Attunity that was high velocity change data capture. So basically data integration, any source of data, mainframes, SAP, cloud systems, any target, Snowflake, Databricks, and basically any kind of modern cloud data platform we can facilitate now. We can go through and harness data and move it in. What Talent brought was the ability to actually now transform that data, govern that data, and manage the quality of that data on the fly. So we quickly set about with our product teams integrating those two products into one. So now customers are one-stop shop to be able to actually harness all of their data and govern it and get the quality right going into AI. And we even have something on top of that called our trust score for AI, where you can actually score your data, like look at the quality, the veracity of your data, the consistency of it, and we'll tell you whether this data is actually good enough to feed into a model. And that's really, really important. And as we get to more automation in the world and AI starts making decisions that actually get acted on without human intervention, better make sure your data's right.
It's incredible. And one of the, we see it in the market big time. I mean, just the amount of energy right now and spend that's going into this data infrastructure space is really exciting. And, it really feels like the company is at the right place at the right time after many years of thinking about, the future of this world. And of course, the opportunities that are now being, driven from all these new use cases, despite the fact that AI has been something that Qlik's been focused on for a long time, is creating significant opportunity for the company. That opportunity, as we thought about it, really created a chance for us to take a step back and think about what we wanted to do collectively with the business going forward. And we recently brought in a new investor, and actually, a collection of new investors, but the largest being an Abu Dhabi sovereign wealth fund, ADIA, who has recently joined the investor group. Of course, one of our very important partners, and it'd be great just to get your perspective on the recapitalization of the business, this investment, and the significance, from your perspective and the employees, and just what it means for the company at this at this time in its evolution and growth.
Sure. No, it's a great story. So we put Qlik and Talent together, and then the goal was, all right, let's take a breath. Right? We did this. We were very successful in the integration, but a funny thing happened at that point, which we started to get a lot of inbound investor interests. And so we were approached by a number of different parties, but eventually we got in touch with ADIA, and honestly, they just got it. Like they really understood the power of AI, but more importantly, they really understood the foundation of AI and what needs to be done. And our conversations were so engaging with them, and really so exciting. Like my team got so fired up when they heard about a new investor who really, really wanted to be part of our journey, but really also understood everything we were doing, as well as Thoma Bravo understood everything we were doing. So it was really a chance to bring in some new investors, recapitalize the company, and really just set the table for this next chapter. So we're really excited. And yes, to your point, we have a bunch of smaller investors in as well. And there's as you know, it's more interest than we could actually handle at the end of the day with the transaction. So imagine sitting in front of your whole company saying, we had more investor interest than we knew what to do with. That was pretty motivating for the team.
No, it's awesome. And of course, we're at Thoma Bravo thrilled to continue to be the largest investor in the business, and maintaining that incredibly close partnership with you and the company. It's been an awesome partnership over the years, and the business has been transformed in such an incredible way, not only operationally, which is a part of what we always try to do with the businesses we invest in, but also strategically. And the platform that now sits in the market is so exciting. And I really think that these next handful of years, are going to be more exciting than any in the company's history. It'd be really great just to get your perspective on how Thoma Bravo, in partnership with yourself and the team over the years, has been a valued partner to the company. Where you think we've helped you the most, just how you would describe our partnership, because of course people call you all the time, as references on us. We always give you as a reference. Hopefully that's we're about to find out if that's a good decision or not. And look, I'd appreciate if you said something nice about me, because my mom's probably listening to this podcast as well. So yeah, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts as right now our longest standing CEO in the portfolio, actually.
Yeah. Well, look, this is super genuine, and you've seen me stand up on stage and talk about this before, how much I value the partnership and how fortunate I think we've been. First thing I would say is, look, the last 7 years haven't been a straight line. We've had to contend with a lot of external forces, right? The pandemic. I had a large business in Russia that we had to shut down because of the war, inflation. And, so I'd say the first thing that TB brought me was just a steady hand and just a great North Star, right? I never felt like I was alone in any of this, right? There was just a great group of investors, operating partners that you could lean on in turbulent times to actually muscle through some of these really difficult challenges. So that was really important. And then from a strategy standpoint, being able to sit down and work through, like, okay, where do we think where's next? Like, where should we expand our market? What are the key acquisition opportunities out there? Really, really helpful. I'd say the most important thing, though, is like deal making. My corp dev team is 2 people, right? You know that. So I get such amazing support. It used to be Andrew Almeida and Chip. Now it's Mike Hoffman and Monish. But terrific, helping us source deals, helping us finance deals with the cap markets team, the diligence, et cetera. We've in parallel built the muscles to integrate acquisitions quickly. So it's super complementary. We get the deal done. We all have confidence we can make it work. And then we go from there. So that part is amazing. And then I mentioned the cap markets team, like, they're for real. Like, those guys are amazing. We've been able to, do things, raise capital, refinance debt in, very smooth fashion. And what it all adds up to, and why, honestly, I don't think I could ever go work in a public company again, and why I love working with TB and private equity, is because we make decisions. We're decisive. And it's just a pleasure to work in an environment where you have a board that's so supportive, and we just decide and we go. Violent execution. As a CEO, you can't ask for better.
It's really fun. It's always fun to sit down with great teams, great leaders like yourself that want to do more, but want to make the right decision and do the right thing for the business and your customers. And I always love when we're making a decision. We're always thinking about together. What does this mean for the long-term strategic importance of the company? Not can we increase earnings next quarter necessarily by buying something really cheap that may not actually add any value to the platform. It's always about how do we build something really interesting and strategic. And I think that's really benefiting the business today in a really unique way, given where this market is and how quickly this Gen AI opportunity and the budget dollars have really flowed to that. So all of those small decisions add up, and that's the benefit of having a great leader like yourself, at the helm of a company of this importance. So thanks, Mike, for all of that leadership over the years, and of course your team's incredible too. And we've worked with executives at Qlik really since day one, even before actually you were at the business. So it's so nice to have that tenure. The company has of course, like you mentioned it earlier, but that lineage in Lund in Sweden is really unique. And I'd love to hear a little bit about that. Just, it's not often, of course, that, we come across a company that has made that leap, to be an international business starting, in what's a relatively small town in Sweden. But that culture of the company is just so important. And actually a lot, the business has grown up around that in many ways.
Yeah, so you pointed out Lund is this small town in Sweden, really centered around a university, right? And the actual initial product was actually built by academics, but it was an amazing in-memory, associative engine technology that really disrupted the analytics market, the old like kind of business objects and Cognos types of, kind of old school BI platforms. Those patents still exist today and still work, and nobody's been able to replicate it. So it's a strong product. But what you're more referring to is the philosophy that came out, which was this balance of business, but also like social responsibility and commitment to the employees. And that persists. So, through all the iterations of Qlik, we've managed to come to this point, 20 plus years later. And we've been able to preserve that connection to society. We give our software in kind to not-for-profits. We work with the UN on human trafficking and climate change. We work with disaster relief organizations. That's remained. And by the way, we've acquired an Israeli company. We've acquired a French domiciled company. So you can imagine putting all those cultures together, but yet we've been able to preserve those roots of doing good for society while at the same time running a really great balanced business of profit and growth. And you can do both. Yeah,
absolutely. And you've obviously shown that. And like you said, in every geography, you've been successful where we've operated. Maybe one last question here, but as you think about Qlik and the years ahead, what are your hopes for the business? What would you like Qlik to be, 10, 20, 30 years from now? How do you think about that as you run the business today on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, well, I'll give you a sign of how much the employees are excited about this next chapter. And then this, which is with this recapitalization, my entire leadership team re-upped, right? So everybody wants to stay and everybody wants to be part of this next chapter. And, some have been in for quite a while, but they feel re-energized, rejuvenated. And here's why. Because we think we've got something unique in the market, and we think that this AI wave is just getting started, but it's really it's going to take a different shape over time. And as it starts to become more mainstream and starts to be assumed as, in platforms and technologies and vertical SaaS plays and things like that, we just want to be there. We want to be ubiquitous. And I always say this all the time. What makes us unique, like a lot of companies talk about AI, like their whole value prop is give us all your data, right? Like give us all your data and we'll make AI happen for you. That's not who we are. We meet customers and we work with them the way they want to work with us. And so my vision for the company is to be that independent, value-creating company for all of our employers that helps them succeed the way that they want to succeed and not impose any paradigm on them. And look, I think that can sustain this company for many, many years to come.
Well, Mike, thanks so much for being here today. It is our inaugural podcast from the Miami studio. It's season 3, episode 1. So you're kicking off a big season for us. Sponsorships are at an all-time high. And look, we appreciate you being here today on Behind the Deal. Thanks so much.
It's a great pleasure, Seth. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks to Mike for coming on today. If you like this episode, be sure to listen to next week's episode of Beyond the Deal, our mini-series where we get to ask him anything. I'm Seth Boro. Thanks for joining us.